Welcome back to Ancient Edge, where the dust of millennia reveals truths that still pulse through our modern world. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing on a windswept battlefield 2,000 years ago. The ground trembles beneath your feet as thousands of soldiers march in perfect unison, their bronze-tipped spears glinting like a forest of deadly thorns. The air fills with the thunder of war drums and the whistle of arrows darkening the sky. Now open them. You're in a command center watching drone feeds, satellite imagery, and digital battle space management. Different worlds separated by centuries of technology, yet bound by the same invisible threads of strategy, innovation, and human ingenuity. What if the weapons of antiquity, like the Roman gladius or the composite bow, still held sway on today's battlefields? You might be surprised to learn how their design principles and tactical applications profoundly influenced the development of tanks, fighter jets, and even cyber warfare. Today, we're uncovering the surprising link between ancient spears and modern missiles, revealing how the past continues to shape our present and future conflicts. The forgotten blueprint of battle. Before GPS-guided munitions and mechanized infantry, before gunpowder and cannons, there was the phalanx, a wall of bronze shields and protruding spears that moved as one organism, breathing and thinking in perfect synchronization. The Greek city-states perfected this formation around the 7th century BCE, transforming individual warriors into something far more formidable, a unified killing machine where each soldier's shield protected the man beside him. This wasn't just about weapons, it was about coordination, discipline, and the revolutionary understanding that organized units fighting in formation could defeat larger, more chaotic forces. The Romans took this concept and evolved it further with the manipular legion, a flexible fighting force divided into smaller, more maneuverable units, called maniples and later cohorts. Unlike the rigid phalanx, Roman legions could adapt to terrain, respond to tactical changes mid-battle, and execute complex flanking maneuvers. The centurions who commanded these units established a hierarchical command structure that still echoes in modern military organization, from squad leaders to company commanders to battalion chiefs. And when you watch modern infantry units moving through hostile territory in coordinated squads, providing covering fire while others advance, you're witnessing a tactical dance choreographed over 2 millennia ago on the fields of Gaul and the deserts of Carthage. The gladius, that iconic short sword of the Roman legionnaire, wasn't just a weapon, it was a philosophy. Measuring only 18 to 24 inches, it forced Roman soldiers to fight in tight formation, stabbing rather than slashing, maximizing lethality in confined spaces. This principle of designing weapons for specific tactical doctrines persists today. Modern assault rifles are engineered not just for individual marksmanship, but for coordinated fire and maneuver tactics. The M4 carbine's compact design allows soldiers to operate in vehicles and urban environments, just as the gladius allowed legionnaires to fight shield to shield in the crush of battle. The first human to hurl a stone at prey understood something revolutionary. Distance equals safety and advantage. By the time ancient civilizations rose, this simple truth had evolved into sophisticated projectile weapons that fundamentally altered the calculus of warfare. The sling, seemingly primitive, could propel a lead bullet with devastating force. Archaeology has uncovered ancient slinger ammunition with inscriptions mocking the enemy, showing that psychological warfare came packaged with kinetic energy even then. Skilled Balearic slingers were so prized that Hannibal recruited them as mercenaries, and a well-aimed stone could shatter bone and pierce armor. The composite bow represented a quantum leap in projectile technology. Crafted from wood, horn, and sinew laminated together, these bows, perfected by steppe nomads like the Scythians and Mongols, delivered tremendous power from a compact frame. A mounted archer could loose arrows with accuracy while riding at full gallop, creating mobile firepower that terrorized sedentary civilizations for centuries. This combination of mobility and ranged lethality is the direct ancestor of modern mechanized cavalry, attack helicopters, and fast attack vehicles. The principle remains unchanged: strike from distance, maintain mobility, avoid engagement on the enemy's terms. When ancient engineers constructed the first catapults and ballistae, they weren't just building bigger weapons, they were pioneering the science of artillery. The torsion-powered ballista could drive an iron-tipped bolt through multiple armored soldiers, while the counterweight trebuchet, developed later in medieval times, but rooted in ancient principles, could hurl 300-pound stones to demolish fortifications. These siege engines required mathematical precision, understanding of physics, and logistical organization to transport and operate. Modern artillery, from howitzers to rocket artillery systems, follows the same logic. Concentrate overwhelming firepower to breach defenses and demoralize defenders before infantry advances. The ancient siege of Masada, where Roman engineers built a massive ramp to breach the fortress, mirrors modern combined arms operations, where engineering units clear obstacles for assault forces. Perhaps most importantly, projectile weapons introduced the concept of ammunition logistics. An army of archers required thousands of arrows daily. Roman siege engines needed carefully crafted bolts and stones. Armies began to calculate not just food and water, but munitions. How many arrows per archer per day? How to transport them? How to manufacture them in the field? This logistical awakening birthed the complex supply chains that modern militaries depend on. When a carrier strike group deploys, planners calculate ordnance expenditure rates, supply ship schedules, and ammunition types, a direct intellectual descendant of the Roman quartermaster calculating javelin replacement rates for a legion on campaign. Mastering terrain and surprise. Lessons from antiquity. In 216 BCE at Cannae, Hannibal Barca orchestrated perhaps the most devastating ambush in military history. Facing a numerically superior Roman army, he deliberately weakened his center, drew the Romans into a killing zone, then enveloped them with cavalry and infantry wheeling from the flanks. 50,000 Romans died in a single afternoon. Hannibal's genius wasn't superior weapons, it was superior understanding of terrain, timing, and enemy psychology. This battle is still studied at military academies because it demonstrated that tactical brilliance can overcome material disadvantage, a lesson that resonates through guerrilla warfare from Vietnam to Afghanistan. Ancient commanders were masters of using geography as a weapon. Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off the Persian army, succeeded because Leonidas chose a narrow pass that negated Persian numerical superiority. Mountain passes, river crossings, forest clearings, ancient generals learned to read terrain like a language, understanding how topography channeled movement and created opportunities. Modern special operations forces study these same principles. When planning an ambush or defensive position, commanders seek terrain that constrains enemy options while maximizing friendly advantages. High ground for observation and fields of fire, natural obstacles to canalize movement, escape routes for withdrawal. Sun Tzu's The Art of War, written around the 5th century BCE, really codified deception as a strategic imperative. All warfare is based on deception, he wrote, and, ancient commanders truly embraced this wisdom. The Trojan horse, of course, remains the ultimate symbol of strategic misdirection, but history is just brimming with examples: fake camps to deceive scouts, feigned retreats to draw enemies into traps, misinformation spread through captured spies. These tactics evolved seamlessly into modern information warfare, cyber operations, and electronic warfare. When military planners create elaborate deception plans, dummy installations, false radio traffic, misleading social media. They're actually executing the same strategic DNA that Sun Tzu articulated 25 centuries ago. Ancient fortifications tell stories of offensive and defensive innovation locked in perpetual competition. The walls of Jericho, Constantinople's triple fortifications, and China's Great Wall all shared some common features: obstacles to slow attackers, elevated positions for defenders, and controlled access points to concentrate defensive firepower. Medieval castles, refined these concepts with concentric walls, murder holes, and strategic placement overlooking key terrain. Modern military installations still follow these principles. Forward operating bases employ defensive berms, guard towers, controlled entry points, and fields of fire. The same strategic thinking, really, just scaled to different threats. The ancient fortress architect who positioned walls to maximize defender advantage would absolutely recognize the logic behind modern military-based design, even if the materials and weapons have changed beyond recognition. From swords to software, the evolution of command and control has been, a fascinating journey. Ancient generals faced a command nightmare: how to coordinate thousands of soldiers across chaotic battlefields where communication meant runners, signal flags, or trumpet calls. Alexander the Great's genius partly lay in his ability to read battle flow and position himself where his intervention mattered most, maintaining situational awareness through personal observation and trusted subordinates. This challenge, understanding the battlefield and coordinating dispersed forces, drove the evolution of military command structures. The Romans institutionalized this with their command hierarchy, written orders, and standardized procedures, creating frameworks that modern militaries still employ. Today's battalion commanders, using digital battle management systems, face fundamentally the same challenge: maintain awareness, make decisions, and communicate intent to subordinate units. The technology, of course, differs radically, but the cognitive and organizational challenge descends directly from ancient precedent. The Spartan agoge, that brutal training regime that began at age 7, and the Roman legionaries' endless drilling with gladius and shield, established something revolutionary: the concept that warriors are made, not born. Professional training, standardized techniques, and relentless practice created soldiers who could execute complex maneuvers under terrifying stress. When Spartan hoplites maintained formation while under arrow fire, or Roman cohorts executed pincer movements in the chaos of battle, they demonstrated that training transcends individual courage. Modern boot camps, infantry schools, and continuous unit training trace their philosophical lineage to these ancient innovations. The muscle memory of a Marine performing immediate action drills or a paratrooper executing an emergency procedure connects directly to a Roman legionnaire's reflexive sword thrust. Both are the products of institutionalized training that transforms individuals into reliable components of military systems. While weapons and tactics capture imagination, logistics wins wars, a truth ancient commanders learned through bitter experience. Alexander's conquests succeeded partly because his logistics officers solved the staggering challenge of moving tens of thousands of soldiers across thousands of miles, maintaining supply lines, and procuring food in hostile territory. Roman roads weren't built for tourism, they were military infrastructure enabling rapid troop movement and supply delivery. Ancient Chinese strategists understood that cutting enemy supply lines could achieve what direct assault could not. When Hannibal crossed the Alps, his greatest challenge wasn't the mountains, it was keeping his army fed and equipped far from supply bases. Modern military logistics, with its fuel trucks, supply depots, and airlift capability, exists because ancient commanders discovered that the best weapons are useless if soldiers lack food, arrows, or replacements. Every forward supply base, every logistics convoy, every supply officer calculating consumption rates honors the legacy of ancient quartermasters who first grasped that armies march on their stomachs and fight with what their supply lines can deliver. Beyond the battlefield, the psychological echo. Ancient commanders knew that wars were won in minds before they were won with swords. Roman legions carried standards, the Aquila, a golden eagle, that embodied unit honor and tradition. Losing a standard meant disgrace. Recovering one meant glory. Germanic tribes displayed enemy skulls to terrify opponents. Celtic warriors painted themselves with woad and fought naked to demonstrate fearlessness. These weren't random traditions. They were psychological operations designed to strengthen friendly morale and shatter enemy will. Modern military units maintain this tradition through unit patches, mottos, and ceremonies that build cohesion and identity. Psychological operations divisions employ sophisticated techniques, but their goals would be familiar to any ancient general. Convince the enemy that resistance is futile, while convincing friendly forces that victory is inevitable. The aftermath of ancient battles revealed, some really uncomfortable truths about warfare's psychological toll. Roman veterans returning from decades of campaigning struggled to reintegrate into civilian life. Ancient texts describe soldiers tormented by battle memories, unable to find peace. The Greeks had no term for PTSD, but Homer's Iliad, it portrays Achilles wrestling with grief, rage, and trauma. A recognition that warfare wounds the mind as surely as it wounds the body. Ancient societies lacked modern therapeutic frameworks, but they understood that sending young men to experience the horrors of combat came with hidden costs paid, long after battles ended. This recognition, refined through millennia of warfare, informs modern understanding of combat stress, the importance of unit cohesion and resilience, and the obligation to care for those who bear conflict's psychological scars. Standing at the intersection of past and present, we see that modern warfare's gleaming technology, it often obscures an ancient foundation. The tank commander maneuvering armored units, for instance, employs tactical principles honed by Macedonian cavalry 2,000 years ago. The fighter pilot exploiting altitude and speed advantage is actually executing concepts developed by steppe archers who used mobility and range to dominate sedentary armies. The cyber warfare specialist deploying deception and misdirection channels, Sun Tzu's strategic wisdom. Even artificial intelligence and autonomous weapons, represent a technological evolution of an ancient imperative. Find advantages that multiply friendly power while diminishing enemy capability. The weapons changed. Bronze to iron, muscle power to gunpowder, mechanical to digital. But the underlying principles remained constant. Concentration of force, economy of effort, unity of command, surprise, security. These maxims, codified by modern military theorists, were discovered through trial and blood on ancient battlefields. The Roman centurion who maintained discipline under a Carthaginian cavalry charge, and the platoon sergeant who keeps soldiers focused during an ambush are separated by time, but united by the timeless challenge of leading humans through the crucible of combat. Perhaps most importantly, ancient warfare reminds us that technology alone never determines victory. The Persians at Marathon had superior numbers, the Greeks had superior tactics. The Romans didn't defeat Carthage because they had better weapons. They won because they had better logistics, political resilience, and strategic patience. History teaches that human factors, leadership, morale, training, adaptability, often matter more than material advantages. In an age dazzled by technological possibility, this ancient wisdom offers critical perspective. The most sophisticated weapon is worthless without soldiers trained to use it, commanders wise enough to employ it properly, and a strategy that accounts for enemy adaptation. The greatest warriors of antiquity fought with bronze and discipline. We fight with silicon and steel. But we all fight with the same human courage, fear, ingenuity, and determination that has characterized warfare since the first organized armies clashed on Sumerian plains 5,000 years ago. That's the unbreakable link. Technology evolves, but human nature endures. and the principles forged in humanity's oldest profession continue to shape how we prepare for and conduct our newest conflicts. If this journey through time has sparked your curiosity, if you've seen the ancient world with new eyes, then join the Ancient Edge community. Subscribe to our channel to uncover more secrets lost to time. Share this video with anyone fascinated by how the past shapes our present, and let us know in the comments what ancient innovation you'd like us to explore next. The ancient world holds countless lessons waiting to be discovered, lessons about survival, strategy, and the enduring human spirit. Stay curious, stay sharp, and remember, the edge between past and present is thinner than you think. Until next time, this is Ancient Edge, where history isn't just remembered, it's revealed.